Hello, everyone. Welcome to another day of Charm Chats and Happily Ever After Sprints, where we're going to have a chance to talk to authors all month about fantasy romance. And make sure I'm not muted. Okay, I'm not. I've done that a few times. We're also going to play some games and spend time writing. I'm Shannon, writing under the pen name of SC Huston, and you're here on my YouTube channel where I run weekly writing sprints and sometimes do some videos about my writing and publishing. I'm also part of the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast with Ben Pick from Running to Write and Morgan Lee. And I'm the founder and conference chair of the AuthorTube Writing Conference, now heading into its third year. Besides what I do here on YouTube, I am a fantasy romance and YA fantasy author with a passion for writing about broken characters who face adversity to become better versions of themselves. And there may or may not be a dragon, but there's always love to find. Today, I'm joined by Alex Callan and Angelica, if I'm saying the name right, Babineaux. We're going to spend a little time learning about their writing and books, play a game that's fantasy romance themed, and then do a half-hour writing sprint. So now let me introduce today's authors. From a young age, Alex has been writing creatively, with the dream of one day publishing a fiction novel, cutting her teeth on fan fiction of various kinds and badly written 90s, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, Shunen, anime-inspired stories. She never quite had the right story until Thieving Hearts came along. An avid lover of good stories in fantasy, anime, manga, and video games, Alex is thrilled to bring all these influences together in a fantastical, adventurous, and romantic story. A professional writer by day, Alex spends her free time rotating between the latest RPG of choice, reading or writing. She has 2 little ones at home and a loving, supportive husband and 2 miniature, I don't ever know how to say this name, Dashan, what's how you say the name of the dogs? Yeah, okay. For most of my audience, they know, but I know you guys probably didn't. I didn't tell you, but I am partially tone deaf, which means I don't hear a lot of sounds, and I can't hear it in my head to know how to say it. So it's like I can't recall it. All right, for as long as Angelica could pick up a pencil, she had ideas she needed to put to page, from furtively scribbled fan fiction in the middle school notebooks to over a decade's worth of successful NaNoWriMo projects. There's never been a time when she didn't have stories inside of her, desperate to escape. She has finally found a project that needed more love and attention than just 30 days in Thieving Hearts, and a great friend and co-author to help bring their world to life. When she's not feverishly scribbling, you can find her singing with one of her 3 competitive women's barbershop courses, running tabletop games as a forever DM, or going on adventures with her husband. Angelica is proud to be a Black woman and a member of the LGBTQIA+ community. So welcome to my channel, Alex and Angie, and please take a moment to introduce yourselves and say anything else that you would like to add.
Sure, you can go first, Alex.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for having us on here. It's really exciting to come on and talk about our work. So really happy to be here. And yeah, The Heist of Yaventown is our debut. We'll probably dive into it more, but yeah, no, that's pretty much all me. So Angie?
Yeah, I am so thrilled to be here today. I have been, like I said, I've been writing for a really long time, but this is the first time I've actually, me and Alex got together and got this book over the finish line. So we're so excited to be able to talk about it and share it with other people.
And you guys have like 2 more books coming out this year in the same series, right?
Yes.
You've been busy.
Just 3? 2?
Well, 2 in the main series, and then we have the novella. So
right.
Oh, yeah, that's right, the novella. But those are different characters, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go say hello to the audience because we already have 16 comments. So hello, Martin was the first one here. And Richard, I am also here. Nice to see you. Emma Bennett ruined her book with a goat. I'm not going to touch that one. We'll move on. Emma Bennett is a romance author. Saying hello. Despite popular belief, we don't always travel in pairs, and that's a reference to him and Richard being here at the same time because you do often see one with the other. Other fruits are available. Did I say drunk chats? I know sometimes my because I don't pronounce words all the way. I don't think I said that though. Co-authors for the win. Yes. So Martin he writes books with a co-author. They do space opera, sci-fi space opera.
Oh, fun.
Oh, awesome.
Hello, Inksteady. How are you? And Cool Gamer, hello. Okay, yeah, so Richard already has a question. We'll save that for just a second. We'll come back to it. If you guys do have any questions for our authors, please put them into the chat with a Q, and we will make sure to get all of them. I'm not really sure what some of these messages are about. Human, author, pretty magical. I don't know what that is. Don't forget to consensually hug that like button. I appreciate that. Thank you. In the dungeon. What a cover. Yes, it's a beautiful cover.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I bet that looks fantastic. So Richard has this idea. It is.
Yeah.
He has this idea that no book is a real book if it's not a gloss cover.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Mine are not.
All of our friends were like, oh, the Instagrammers and the TikTokers, they like it when your book is matte because it shows up better. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I just wanted it to be glossy and beautiful. So, and it really does pop.
Yeah, it does. I didn't do mine in gloss. I did mine in matte, which he gets on me about, but there is a website you can see what books they have out, what's coming out throughout the year, and you can see the beautiful book cover up close. Kiko, hello. I'm late. You're just on time. Welcome. Hello, Kiko. Okay. All right. So let's start with our questions, and let me review. Okay, we'll come back to Richard's question in a minute because I want to get into talking about fantasy romance first. So what is the concept of genre for fantasy romance for you guys, or romance fantasy?
I picked this one just for Alex.
She knows this because I did an unhinged rant about, well, not rant, but like thinking through like what is fantasy romance as a genre and what does it mean for us. Thanks, Angie.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And I think, the standard definition is that, it is a romance. It should have a happily ever after for now, and the romance should be central to the plot. But when you are doing more heavy fantasy interwoven into that, it gets a little tricky of like, well, how do you keep kind of a longer form series going, which we have planned, but still sort of keep the romance central, and obviously the romance shifts and changes, but at what point is there a point where the romance takes a backseat to some of the external plots, not to leave the characters out or anything, but the romance in particular in that moment is just not as important as some of the other developments that are happening. And so that's kind of one of the entanglements that I kind of go back and forth on. I will say for sure our first 3 books are definitely squarely in fantasy romance. The romance is the heart of it. I think a lot of what we write is very character-driven narrative. And so even though there is, this larger fantastical plot going on, obviously we have a big heist set piece in the middle of our first book. The romance is still at the forefront of that story. And so, yeah, it's something that I grapple with for a lot as we go through and talk about our books. So, yeah.
I totally understand that because I also dealt with that I just published my first fantasy romance. I did a Kickstarter on it last year, but then I put it on retail platforms just a few days ago. So, but yeah, because I wrote just fantasy before that. So I was like, okay, how do I make the romance more central to the plot, but still have this great fantasy happen around it? And I think part of what you're saying too is that you're trying to get it to go over the series. And that's why you have the happily for now, probably at the end of this first book. I haven't got that far yet. But you did kind of set it up where you're really seeing like the 2 separate lives of 2 people. And of course, one of them already has some a sexual encounter with someone else at the beginning of the book, which I don't often see in fantasy romance. Usually if you see something like that, it's just between the 2 people, or if it's a why choose, then of course it's going to be multiple. But I'm curious. I don't want you guys to tell me, but I know that it's going to continue, and that this romance is going to develop between Tomlin and I forgot her name.
Syl.
Sorry.
Syl. Yeah. And so the reason why we wanted to kind of show a sexual encounter outside of who like the main couple is because, and this isn't a secret, it's all over our websites and stuff. As the series goes on, it's going to become a why choose MMF between Sylph and Tomlin and another character showing up named Ephraim, who will be debuting in our 3rd book. And
I didn't read that far.
No. He's not in books 1 and 2. That's kind of the thing. So like we're kind of using these first 2 books as like a duology. Like they may end up being like a standalone set because these are just going to be Sylph and Tomlin. And then our Prince Ephraim shows up in book 3, which is coming out in November. So, we're so excited for everybody to finally see Ephraim because we're like, everyone's like, you said this was MMF. Where's the third? Who's at, like, what's happening? So because like, Verna's there in the first book. And they have a relationship as well, but it's gonna dovetail and be a little different. So
I was going to say, what is it? Would your readers think it might be with him? The MMF would be with him.
we
to start
have
with.
had
We
we
have
have
had
had
that,
reviews. We have, but yeah, he will get his time, but he doesn't end up, he doesn't end up staying with Sylph and Tomlin. He's not the third M or the second M. So, the putting that sexual encounter so early is kind of, first of all, letting our readers know that this is, Tomlin is bisexual. He has equal attraction to men and women. And so, as the series goes on, he ends up falling head over heels for Ephraim, and we explore that as well. So we love Tomlin, and Tomlin loves a lot of people. So we have to kind of balance that out. And so we didn't want that to be like a jump scare, I guess, for people when they got to book 3. So
I mean, that's a smart move. I think you did put that, kind of put that in there to prepare your readers for it. So yeah, I like that. So I mean, you guys were inspired by probably a lot of things, but what drew you to write together in fantasy romance? Why that genre?
Do you want me to? Should I start?
Sure.
Okay. So it was just kind of a perfect storm moment. So Angie, I was in a campaign that Angie was DMing, and for Dungeons and Dragons, and my character was Sylph. And I intentionally worked in this mysterious past that she didn't have any memory of, and I just kind of left it blank for Angie to play around with. And we'd been playing for a while, and then all of a sudden we go into like this tavern, right? And the tavern barkeep is like, "Oh yeah, that's your ex over there, right?" And I'm like, "I have an ex? What? What is this?" And it was Tomlin, and he was with Prince Ephraim. And then lockdown happened. And I was probably one of the few people that did not play in D&D games during pandemic. Like, could not find a game. We did not meet very frequently. And so I was left to stew with all these questions about, like, well, who are these people to her? Why would she, like, okay, I can kind of see Tomlin, but, like, why would she go with the prince? She's loyal to people, not ideal. She's super cagey, like, shoot first, ask questions later, And so I just had all of these, like, burning questions in my mind, and then all of this time at home. And it really just kind of, so I started writing fan fiction. I started writing fan fiction about my character's backstory and trying to figure that out. And then, eventually,
which is terrifying, by the way, for a DM, when one of your characters is like, "Oh, by the way, I just wrote like 20,000 words," and I'm like, "Great, that's not scary. Fine."
But see, what I realized is I didn't want to box Angie into a corner as the DM. And, the game is really about the party. It's not about like my character. And so I was like, this is it. This is the story that I've been waiting for to actually actually do a book project on. And so that's how the original idea kicked off. And then Angie, do you want to talk about how we ended up as co-authors?
Yeah, sure. So, continuing with the pandemic lockdown thing, we're all kind of rattling our cages at home, and I was like, we couldn't meet that often with D&D, and she's right. She's like, I wanna write a book in this world, for Nano, and I was like, go for it. I'm so excited to see what you do with it, and then by the time the next year settled around, I was like, well, I want to play too. Like, I want to come and play in this sandbox because, like, we've definitely taken the world that this is in, like, so much further, like, in a completely different direction than where my campaign was going. My campaign was, like, really post-apocalyptic. Like, there had been a failed campaign that had blown up the world, essentially. And so the party was dealing with that stuff. And so we didn't want to go that route for the books. We wanted to go more like, pre any of that stuff. So like kind of events that are, and so now it's kind of dovetailed into its own universe entirely with a different timeline. But I was like, I want to play in this world too. I love these characters. And it's like, it's also very funny to me because if you have any experience like DMing, like there's definitely times when you just make throwaway characters. And I don't want to say that Ephraim or Tomlin were throwaway characters, but it was definitely like I didn't have a name. I didn't have a last name for Tomlin at first. I didn't have, I pulled some random stuff out for some backstory that we had to retcon a little to avoid the WotC, the Wizards of the Coast stuff. So but like I really wanted to play in the sandbox too, and we've done a whole lot of world building that's like really breathed new life into this world, and I'm super excited for it.
So it seems like from what you guys said that Alex is kind of like the mind behind Sylph, and you're the mind behind Tomlin. In a way,
kind of. Like I definitely started it off, but like his personality and stuff I definitely had, but we kind of worked together for like what his backstory is and how he ended up working for Ephraim, and all of that stuff was like really really Sylph, really not Sylph, really Alex is
she's real. Yep, she's here.
Yep, Sylph is real. But like that's really that was really like Alex's baby, and then we've kind of like workshopped it as we've gone along and codified a lot of it. So
nice. All right, well, we'll ask this question from Richard for the panel audience. If you could be one magical creature, what would you pick? Do you guys have too many I mean, there are other races like elves and dwarves and stuff in your book, but do you have any magical creatures? I haven't seen any yet.
Yeah, magic. If I could be one magical creature, I'd probably want to be a mermaid. I'm an earth sign, but I like the water, so I'd probably do that. I live in Florida, go to the beach all the time.
I'm in Florida too.
Yeah.
Also, the monsoon that you're having. What part of Florida are you in?
Southwest Florida.
Oh, okay, I'm up in the Panhandle, so we just have the rain, so I don't have it as much as you do down there.
Yeah. What about you, Alex?
I don't know. I love dragons. It would probably be some form of a dragon, but I also, when, with magical creature, I thought of like, oh yeah, we don't have any pets yet. Like we've been talking about pets in universe, and like, so I think I'd be like a cute little dragon pet. Not quite a cat, but like, something like that where it can just
like a pseudo dragon.
Yeah,
like a pseudo dragon.
Yeah.
I think we actually had a similar question to this yesterday, and mine is dragon. So
yeah, we were like I said, this started as a D&D, so like there's a lot of races. Like we'll have dragonborn in the novella that I'm writing. Well, Verna's an orc, full orc. He used to be a half orc, but we were like, nah, orcs are cool. So we just made him an orc.
Super big. Like we wrote him super big, and I was like, he should just be an orc.
Yeah, because like, he had to be bigger than Tomlin, and right. Tomlin's big boy.
Yeah, so. Yeah, for an elf, yeah.
So yeah, we just made him a full orc. We'll see some dwarves there's some dwarves in Heist. We'll see some other people as we go along.
Well, isn't Yavin is come from the dwarf language? I think is what I read.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so Yavin in our language, Yavin is tree. So there's a big tree got uprooted, like giant, like mountainous sized tree, and it left like this big hole in the ground that connects to ley lines essentially. And so mages like dug into the earth, and they found this big underground cavern from where the root system was. And unfortunately, because there is inequality in our world a little bit, they didn't have enough resources to rebury the hole. So Yavin is a tiered city that's kind of carved downwards. And so most of this book takes place in the trunk, which is comprised of a couple different levels. The belly and the throat are the ones we're in the most often in this book. So we kind of wanted it to feel like you were being swallowed. And so when you get deeper into the city, it kind of eats you. And so it's darker, it's grimy in the belly. And so that's kind of what our inspiration was for the naming convention and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I figured since when I read in the book that it said that it was named for from the dwarven language, I was like, well, there's got to be dwarf somewhere in the story.
Oh yeah, yeah. Dippet's the elder and younger, both dwarves. So
how come I didn't pick that up? I mean, I did read a scene with them.
Yeah.
That's when they messed up in the church.
Yeah.
And everything. But I guess I did. I don't know. Maybe I was reading it too fast. I was trying to read as much as I could before I fell asleep last night.
You're fine.
We've had some people come in. Hello, Margaret. How are you? This is my partner for the AuthorTube Writing Conference.
Good morning.
And Laya, hello. How are you doing? Oh, wow. Cool world building with a world tree myth. World tree myth. Yeah, that is really cool. And I do love the descriptions of it, especially when they're jumping from rooftop to rooftop and they're going lower and lower in the levels. And it reminds me of a heist movie, but it's set in an epic fantasy setting. So yeah. I really liked it. All right. So another question. So you kind of told us about the book, and you talked about how it was already inspired by D&D. So what's it like co-writing a book? I mean, who gets to write which parts? I mean, I was already trying to figure out, like, maybe Alex was Sylph and you were Tomlin, but I don't know. How do you guys do this?
Yeah. You want to pick this one up, Alex?
Sure. So we actually split our initial draft. So we're still, I think revision-wise, we're still kind of working like what makes sense. But definitely for initial drafting, we plotted out chapter by chapter. We have all of the core beats lined up. And so we know exactly what the other person is writing. And then we just split up the chapters and we say, okay, well, this chapter speaks to me more. I'd rather write this. I think we have characters that we do kind of lean towards, but we do write for all the characters. Even like when there's 3 of them, we do write for all 3 of them. But we do have our preferences. I do write a lot of Sylph, and I write a lot of the Spice. As you pointed out the other day, I forget where that was, but it was funny. but no, we do, and I think it's important that we both, write for all of the characters, because it allows, even when you're in somebody else's head, because we write in first person present, then we're able to accurately, we understand the characters. So we know how they'll actually interact with each other, and it makes the writing more cohesive and seamless. So, yeah.
So you say you plotted out all the beats. So I'm just curious, when you plotted out beats, what did you work off of? I mean, because you have like the hero's journey, but then for the romance side, you do have like romancing the beats. I mean, like how did you set up your beats on that?
We did a mix of romancing the beat for the romance plot, and then we also have started using Saves the Cat Writes a Novel for the kind of overarching story, because this is going to be epic fantasy, and as we get into later books in the series, it ends up being a lot of like court intrigue and Game of Thrones-esque like factions and branches and all of that stuff. So we really wanted to make sure that both lines were clean, and that this book, even in the later stages, because like we have a good idea of the entire arc of this journey, like beginning to end. And so we kind of know, like, okay, we need these things to happen in this book, right? Yeah, exactly. So we have different branches. Once we get Prince Ephraim in the mix, he's a prince of the Aurelian Empire, which is kind of like the overarching like nobility governing the entire continent. And so we wanted to make sure that we were, I think we saw opening loops and closing loops, which was really interesting. Like we wanted to leave things hanging. So like in this book, we're leaving a couple things. Sylph ends up owing people some things at the end of this book, and that plays into book 2 and reemerges in later books. And the same thing for book, for Tomlin, he's running from something. So we wanted to make sure that that feeling is there. So that's what we use to plot out both. We use Plotter as a software tool.
Okay.
And we also use Miro. Miro's kind of like a whiteboard space. So we just have a bunch of sticky notes that we take off and pin down. Alex and me live like 6 states away, so we can't do it in person. So we have to use internet tools to kind of do that. And then we keep our world Bible in Legend Keeper. So that's where we keep, we will be keeping it in Legend Keeper. Right now it's kind of all over the place, but we're slowly pulling it all into Legend Keeper. So we have, like, when we get into the faction games and everything else, everything's in one unified location.
Yeah, and it's not just like the royal factions. We also have different societies. So there's actually like 5 different elven groups, and like 2 of them are grouped together, and then oh no, I guess it's 6. Oh my god, it's 6.
Yeah.
Well, 7 because of Karst. Oh my god, what did we do?
Karst is its own baby. Karst has like
thing, right?
Karst has 10 of its own branches. So
Right.
like that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah,
But
so Silpha and Tomlin are both elves, but they come from very different elven societies.
Yeah.
And like the cool thing about Yavin is that it is a big city on the continent. It's predominantly a human city, but it is sort of the center for the Aurelian Empire. So you get a mix of like all of the species throughout the empire in there. And then there is representation. The elven groups are sort of their standalone entities, but they have representation. So they have like an embassy equivalent, basically.
So is Prince Ephraim, is he human then?
He's a half elf. So
okay.
So his mother is elven from one of the closer elven groups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, too bad I gotta wait 3 books to get see what he's about. But I did pick up the differences between the 2 elves, even when with their coloration, because of their different environments where their peoples have come from. So
yeah, all of our elven enclaves, they have slightly different coloring. So you know, we have there's like a Great Thatch, which is like this big wooded area near like the kind of borders around Yavin. And so they have a lot of like natural colors like greens and browns and bronzes and that sort of thing, which is where Ephraim's mother is from. And then, you know, Sylph is from one of the northern enclaves. They have, you know, some of them have much more pastel colors. Another group has like big jewel tones. And then another group that lives like super far to the north, their skin is mostly like whites, grays, very, very light ice blues, because they're like the closest to like the giant mountains at the top of our world. So
but then Tomlin, he's from inside the earth, right?
he's from Karst.
Yeah,
which
he's
is
from underground. Yeah.
Underground.
So,
but you know, when I heard Sylph's name, I kind of imagined like a forest, because it reminds me of Sylvan, which is you know, Latin for wood. So I kind of thought maybe that was her background. But all right, well, who is your favorite fantasy romance author?
Wow.
I was not prepared for that. I looked ahead.
I saw it on the screen and I was like, we'll have to get to that. Man.
I mean, it could be your favorite fantasy romance author for now, because mine changes all the time.
I'll say Jacqueline Carey, because Kushiel's Dart was very formative.
Oh, I love that series.
I read it when I was in college, and like there's a twist in the first book, and like it changed my brain chemistry. Like I was like, I need to mentally recover from this book, but it was great. So I'll pick that. And her world is like proto our world, so it takes place in like fantasy Europe, basically. You know, pre-France, Italy, like that sort of era. So very, very cool set of books, very cool world building. And probably the first time, like, you know, my little baby eyes, it was probably the first time I'd seen like actual spice in a book. I was like, wow.
Well, in a fantasy book for me, it was the first time I saw, and not only just between male and female.
Yeah. So I'll steal that one. What about you, Alex?
Okay, I Googled real quick. I could remember. But I think I will say The Demon King by Cinda Williams-Chima.
I haven't read that one.
I think I kind of stumbled onto it because I read it on Audible, and I was like, oh, this cover looks cool, grab. And I you know, looking back on it, knowing what I know now as, you know, from a genre perspective and stuff, like, I think that she did a really good job kind of weaving in like the characters as their own people, which I really enjoy reading in fantasy romance. Like sometimes you want that quick, you know, standalone thing or whatever, but it's also really nice to dig into like really intensive characters. And like, I think that's why, you know, our series is so character driven, because that's what I enjoy. So, you know, and it's a story that I really enjoyed, a wide cast of characters. So yeah, it sticks with me. I think about, I guess my favorite books is like, what are the ones that I think about again from time to time?
Yeah.
And this is definitely one of them. So.
Yeah, right. I'm right now, like, I'm stuck on my favorite one being Carissa Broadbent. But yeah, I do like Jacqueline Carey, which Kiko was asking. So I was like, Kiko. And the Kushiel's Dart series, the whole series that goes with that, because she does have a different series. She also has another. Have you read it, Angie?
The one with her son?
No,
With
no,
her
no.
son?
No, it's a different world altogether, and it's from the bad guy's
Oh.
perspective. And it's
Oh,
I think it's
boy.
a duology. It was
I need
so
to.
good.
It's actually on my pile. I just got we went on a giant book haul the other day, and I'm like, now I can get all my favorites and just like add to my stack of like unreadable piles of books I'm trying to get to them all. It's hard, man. It's hard. Reading's hard. Reading's hard when you got to write books.
Well, I think I found Jacqueline Carey back like in 2011, and so I read everything she had out then, but I don't know anything that's new that she has out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the name of that series was. I think it was just a duology, and it was set in a different world, and it was the first time I seen something like it was set in the bad guy's perspective, but it was done in such a way like it's character driven, and so it's done in such a way that you understand his thinking. Like, he doesn't think he's a bad guy. He doesn't think what he's doing is a bad guy. He's reacting to what everybody's doing to him, but he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Those are the best. Those are the best. Like, I love villains that are like, there's two different kinds of villains, right? There's force of nature villains, and that's like your Sauron, your, I'm evil because I need to be evil, your Emperor Palpatines or whatever. But they're like, I feel like villains, not anti-heroes, have gotten kind of undervalued. Like, there's been a lot of anti-heroes, but not a lot of villains, because everybody wants a redeemable hero, because we think villains are hot. There's a villain in book 2 who is hot, like, for us. But I really do love a villain who's like, no, this is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. And you're like, okay, I understand you. Like, you don't think you're a bad guy. You think that you're the hero of your story. Like, that's super important to me.
I mean, the difference is, though, that in her books, the bad guy, the main character, he does get defeated in the end, which you don't see in books now. They're about, if you've got the anti-hero or whatever, the villain, they usually win and get the girl. A little bit different.
We love a tragic arc. We love a tragic arc. I love it.
Bane Wrecker is the name of that first book in that series. It's called The Sundering. So, but I loved it. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the next portion of today, which is fun and games. And we actually are doing Dear Abby Letters Fantasy Romance Edition. And I have a few, so we'll see how many we can get through. We'll start with a long one. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. Wrong button. All right, so this one's a water nymph in love. Dear Abby, I find myself in a bit of a pickle, and I hope you can offer some sage advice. My name is Lady Alara, a water nymph from the enchanted rivers of Aquafall. I have recently become entangled, quite literally, in the affairs of a dashing yet somewhat clumsy centaur named Thorian. Our romance began under the most magical circumstances. It was during the Great Eclipse Festival, where all the creatures of the realm gathered to celebrate the celestial dance. I was performing my traditional water ballet when Thorian, in his attempt to catch a wayward Pegasus, galloped right into my performance, causing a spectacle that ended with both of us drenched and me wrapped up in his ceremonial sash. Since then, we've been inseparable, but here lies the problem. Thorian has invited me to meet his family in the Highland Meadows, but as you know, nymphs and centaurs have had their differences in the past. I wish to make a good impression, but I'm at a loss for what to wear, what to say, how to act. Moreover, I have never been far from any river, and the thought of spending an extended period of time on land fills me with anxiety. To add to my woes, I recently discovered that I have the ability to control water, a gift that emerges only in the most emotional of times. I fear an accidental flood should I become too nervous or excited, which, as you might imagine, could dampen the entire occasion. How do I navigate this cross-terrain romance and make a splash for the right reason? Sincerely, a water nymph in love.
This is a good one. This is good. I went through a phase where I read a lot of Dear Abby in similar columns. So yeah, I like this. Do you mind if I go first, Angie? Is that okay? Okay. So if I were writing to a water nymph in love, what I would say is, first of all, your centaur beau should be accommodating of the fact that you need access to water. I think that's, part of the compromise of you coming and like being together as a couple, and that's really important. So you should talk about that. As far as customs and whatnot go, I think that equally you should make the effort to ask and try and learn. But with familial differences, they're always tricky, but I think that the effort, especially in being open and honest about trying to make the effort with you and your partner, is what's really valuable and important. That's what I have.
I would say to a water nymph in love, let the water flow. Your centaur boo fell in love with you, how you are. So I think that you should be able to show his family exactly who you are and not be nervous about it. I would ask if maybe you could do an outdoor picnic near a stream, perhaps, so that everybody's needs are accommodated. And then you could enjoy listening to and appreciating their cultures while they get to hear a bit about yours. Don't worry about getting too emotional. I feel like you are already so personable if you're a performer. Just pretend like you're on stage with your leading man, and I'm sure that you will keep the festivities high and dry.
Love that. Yeah, I would be worried about the whole water coming in and ruining everything. RC, hello. Came in, slides in the chat, saying hello to everyone.
Yeah.
All right. I can do one more, maybe two more. We'll see how. This next one is a bit shorter. Torn between whiskers and talon.
Oh boy.
Dear Abby, in the enchanted groves of Valadoria, where harmony usually reigns, a peculiar predicament has befallen me and my dear partner Luna. We are guardians of nature, living amidst the whispering leaves and singing brooks. Our love, as deep as the roots of the ancient oaks, has recently encountered its first storm over a pet, no less. We've adopted a grifflet, a small mischievous griffin, part eagle, part lion, and entirely adorable. I named him Whiskers for his playful pouncing and Penchant for chasing his own tail. Luna, however, insists on calling him Talon, citing his regal lineage and noble bearing. What started as a playful debate has grown into a thorny thicket of disagreement. Whiskers or Talon seems indifferent to his name, but very tuned into our growing discord, mirroring our frustration with a symphony of squawks and roars. How do we resolve this name game without ruffling feathers or bruising egos and restore peace to our sylvan abode? Sincerely, torn between Whiskers and Talon.
Yeah.
Hi, Nia.
I would say, dear Torn, what strife you guys have gotten yourselves into. I would say that the both of you need to take a moment and remember that you wanted to adopt this tiny grifflet because you wanted to experience taking care of a being together. So I think that you should perhaps have a compromise, either find a name that sits somewhere in between, because your grifflet is neither lion nor eagle, but is something blend between. And then I would say maybe consider getting a set of toys for either half. Sincerely yours, dear Abby.
That's so good. I would say, dear Torn, no need to pull out any or ruffle any feathers. What's important is that your grifflet responds to both of you. So if that's the case, then use the names that you prefer, and then no more strife. So that's what I would say. Something like that.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking the same thing because I had a cat that I named Cat because I didn't think I was going to get to keep him. I was in the military and I got him because I had a mouse in my house. So I thought whenever I got my next orders, I'd have to, give him up. So I just called him Cat, but then I got to keep him. So then we gave him another name and he responded to both. And I'm like, okay. But I also do like the idea of a compromise or coming up with like just a new name that satisfies both sides. Something like that. Yeah. Well, we could do one more. You want to do one more?
Sure.
Yeah.
These are cute.
All right. This one is called Zephyr, the Wind Toss Lover. And by the way, guys, I was not real original with the names.
I love it. I love it.
Dear Abby, I write to you in a state of utter befuddlement and desperation, seeking your unparalleled wisdom to navigate the choppy waters of domestic bliss turned turbulent. I, Zephyr, a wind spirit, and my beloved Embera, a fire sprite, have recently decided to blend our elemental essences and cohabit in a quaint cottage at the edge of the Whispering Woods. At first, our union was harmonious as a symphony, with my breezes gently fanning Embera's flames, creating a warm and inviting hearth for all manner of magical creatures seeking refuge and comfort. Our love was a beacon, a testament to the power of elemental harmony. However, as the novelty of our shared abode wanes, so too does the patience we once held for each other's idiosyncrasies. Embera, with her fiery disposition, has a penchant for flaring up over the slightest provocation, be it a misplaced gust or an accidentally extinguished candle. Her passion, while one of the very things that drew me to her, now threatens to singe the very fabric of our coexistence. On the other wing, I, in my desire for fresh air and freedom, often leave our windows ajar, inviting the howling gales of the north wind, much to Embera's chagrin. What once was a delightful zephyr is now in her eyes a tempestuous whirlwind, leaving her flames flickering and her temper ablaze. Our latest squabble involved a disastrous dinner party, where my attempt to cool a particularly spicy dish resulted in a culinary catastrophe, and Embera's efforts to rekindle the feast nearly set the table aflame. Dear Abby, how do we, two beings of opposing elements, find a middle ground where our love can once again ignite the hearth without burning the house down? Is there a spell, a charm, or perhaps a single act of understanding that can quell the storm and stoke the flames of passion in equal measure? Yours in a whirlwind of woe, Zephyr, the wind-tossed lover.
That's cute. I have an idea. You want to go first? Okay.
No,
I would say
you're better.
I would say, dear Zephyr, the wind tossed. I understand that your whirlwind of love has reached a tumultuous conclusion. I think that you and Embar are still perfect for each other, but might need a change of pace. Perhaps instead of a quaint, seemingly flammable cottage, you could perhaps move to a temporary location that's more suitable for both your needs. I would say maybe some adobo or in a desert where you could leave the windows open as warm, and your lover could embrace you in the nights when it gets cold. So I feel like a change of pace and a change of scenery would be just what the two of you need to remember that you kindled your relationship together, and keep your fires blazing.
Cool.
That's perfect. I also thought about the flammable house. I was like,
maybe not the forest.
Maybe not the forest.
Also, I think a road trip might be nice for you guys. It'd be fun.
Ooh, road trip. Yeah.
I think what I might say is Dear Tempest. The full name, I forget. Congratulations, you moved out of your early passionate phase and are now entrenched in the difficulties of maintaining an actual relationship. So you reached that milestone. Working through the challenges of cohabiting is a normal process. It can be definitely challenging, but being open and honest with each other will always help work through that. Maybe a forest cottage is not the best location for you, especially if you want to cultivate, a safe space for multiple magical creatures to come and visit. And maybe it's best to find some place where you can open the windows and where your lover's temper can fly a little bit more freely, where their fires can burn a little bit more freely. I'll say something like that.
I love that. You guys should really do this as a living, help out magical creatures and how to get along. And I forgot to say, chat, you all could have chimed in too, but I didn't see anything there. It's okay. I guess they're probably just wondering, like, what the heck are they talking about? All right, so we're going to move into the last thing of today, which is the writing sprint. We have about 30 minutes we're going to go for, and Alex and Angie chose a prompt ahead of time. So let me put that up there. I had to kind of shorten it a little bit because it only took so many characters. But here's the writing prompt. Those out there, you don't have to do this. If you don't want to, you can use the writing sprint for whatever it is that you want to work on. But here's the prompt. A bard with the power to make stories come to life encounters a mysterious figure in one of his tales. As he delves deeper into his creation, he falls in love with a character he never intended to exist. So I think this is a good one. It's gonna be fun to write. And are you guys ready to start on it?
Yeah, just getting a new document.
Okay. And as a reminder for anybody in the chat, you guys are welcome to leave any questions. We've done some questions and answers already, but we'll take any other questions and answer them before the end of the show, especially if you want to know anything about fantasy romance and or co-authoring, as these ladies have been able to do with their series. So I always find that amazing when people can co-author together. It's so hard working with people, let alone writing a book together.
Yeah, we're fortunate that we have like very similar like ideologies and like beliefs about like writing and that sort of thing. The only thing that we normally disagree on is like the headings when we're formatting our chapters. That's literally
It's not point. That's not what they're for.
yeah. So that's it. That's our only strife.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, well, we'll get started in 3, 2, 1, and go. And that is time. How did you guys do? Yeah, that actually went like really fast.
I did great.
I did too. I'm going to finish this sentence.
And take this banner down. You got it. Okay. I don't know if that was just practice for you guys. Me, it was just, I just kind of practiced a little bit. I don't know if I'll actually ever use the words I had there, but it is interesting. It was an interesting prompt for sure. I use it like I have gods in my world that create characters, I guess, or creatures, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to actually work for anything. So what about you guys?
I had a lot of fun with this. My daughter is a toddler and she's just finally hitting all the Disney movies, and she was really into Cinderella. So that was kind of what I like based this off of a little bit. So yeah, that was pretty fun to write.
Yeah, I wrote about, we have in our dragon board, there's a type of art we call an archivist, who they're basically storytellers, and they sing through song, they like orate. And so I made a archivist who bought some new paper from one of our elven enclaves, and it brought he wrote down a new story that he'd heard from another archivist, and the girl in the song came to life and came into his house, and he like protected her from the villain in that little like tale. And he's like, I don't really know what to do. I have a girl from time immemorial in my house, and I don't know what to do about this, but I guess I'll keep her safe from whatever was chasing her. So yeah.
I love that. You have like a really good story going there. It feels like full.
That's really cute.
Yeah.
A solid 1,000 words might be a snippet. I'll send to somebody.
I can't type that fast. If I dictated, I could get that many words in 30 minutes, but I don't type fast. Do you know, the prompt reminded me of is a Greek myth, and I'm trying to remember the name of the characters in the Greek myth, but it was a sculptor, and he sculpted the perfect woman for him, and it came to life. And I don't remember much else other than that, but yeah, it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, I just had bards on my mind because we have a couple storytellers in our books, and I was in the mood to do something fun. So
yeah.
I thought it would be fun to like create this like perfect woman in the story, but the bard doesn't get to finish her tale because like he gets interrupted. It's like for a bunch of kids, and then like something happens with the kids, and then they start crying, and he's like, okay, well, I'm done now. I'm out. And like normally they go away. The creations go away, but she did not, and he realized he did not finish her tale. So now she showed up at his place and is like, you're my true love. And he's like, no, I don't think that's true. And she's like, nope. Yeah. And he's like, no. Nope. And he also made her incredibly clumsy. So she just accidentally broke his lute.
Well, what would work for that is like if he didn't complete her tale, maybe he didn't give a complete description. So she has like no toes, and that could be making her clumsy.
I thought about that she has a penchant to like stub her toe all the time. But then I ended up just going with the more general clumsiness. But yeah.
Yep. All righty. Let me go back to the script here if I can find the right button. Well, before we wrap up the chat, well, actually, we did have a I've got too many tabs open, and I'm losing track of where I'm at. Martin did say that I did this up there earlier. Can't confirm pretty much our only arguments have ever been over chapter headings.
Yep. I'm like, as long as it breaks the pace and I can click to it, I don't really care how big it is. Alex is like, no.
See, I'm a technical writer by trade. So like headings denote hierarchy. They're really important for reader visibility. So then I go into the whole document design bit. Yeah.
And I'm just like, whatever you need. And I'm very much like, oh, I'm done with this, delete. And she's like, no, we can't do it. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll shrink it to font size 2 instead of deleting it for you.
I have an aversion to deleting anything, even in G-Docs. I'm like, no, we can't.
I'm like,
Chapter headings are more than titles. Yeah, they are. Or they can be.
Yeah. I don't worry about my chapter headings. They're just the name of the point of view person.
Oh, we would we just use numbers until we actually finish writing it, and then we'll come back and throw a chapter heading, a chapter title in there.
We actually kind of like stumbled into that because originally we didn't have chapter titles, and I think we just started, or you started naming them in when we were drafting book 3, I think,
Yeah.
and it just kind of caught on. I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. We should name the chapters. That's really fun. So yeah.
I mean, I think it's hard enough to name a book, let alone think about what to name a chapter.
Oh, you should have seen. Okay, so we also have like a private Discord server that we use to like keep a lot of this stuff in. So like each book has its own channel.
Yeah.
And so we also have like different channels for business. And so we had like a book title channel, and it was just like when we were trying to come up with like a naming convention for all of these, like we were like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? And I remember Alex just posting a bunch of titles and being like, I hate all of these at the end of it. And I'm like, that's not helpful. He's like, oh, these are garbage. Vomit emoji. I'm like, okay, well, not that then. We'll go ahead and move on. So.
All right. Well, we have pretty much wrapped up everything. But before we do wrap up the chat, any other questions that they may ask, can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are working on next and when it might come out? So I know this just came out. You have 2 more books coming out this year. So I don't know if you want to talk about those.
Yeah. So we have book 2. The Plunder of Karst is coming out in March 16th. So that's up and available for pre-order. And then the novella that Angie's writing, To Snatch a Gilded Laurel, is part of a bigger anthology. So it's part of the Bound by Flame anthology, which is all about dragons. So if you like dragons, you should check out the anthology. And that'll be in April. And then
April 19th, I believe.
Yeah, April 19th. And that's available for pre-order. And then our book 3 will be coming out sometime in November. We haven't quite nailed down that date yet, but probably soon. So the draft for book 3 is done. Actually, we were going to release it in June, but book 4 is not finished yet. And so we wanted to have book 3 and 4 released closer together.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that does answer a question I had kind of pop in was, how many books are going to be in the series? Is that it at the 3rd book, but it's not, you have a 4th one. Is there more after that?
12? Question mark?
Yeah.
Well, every once in a while we message each other and be like, don't be mad, but I think we need another book here. And so right now, I think we have plots for 10, with 11 and 12 being kind of just titled Endgame right now, of just like whatever the end. We don't know how many books that's going to take, but probably 12.
But books 1 through 5 are like a complete arc. And then at book 6, we want to shift more into the court intrigue. And I think part of what lets us do that is that each book is very like lower stakes to start off with. It's very small, very self-contained. So like as the series goes on, we see a little bit more of the city open up. We open up a little bit more into the world each time we go. We don't start right off the bat with like a must save the world kind of a plot. And we did that because we wanted to kind of like just sit and enjoy the characters and sit in their lives and enjoy that space and that time. So that's why our 3rd character doesn't show up until book 3. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, before we wrap up everything for the rest of this, would you guys tell our audience here, where can they find you and where can they purchase your books?
Sure. You can find us at allensetbooks.com is our website. We're also on Instagram under allenset_books. I think if you just search us on Facebook, it's all the same. All of our website also has links to all of our other socials. We're thinking about TikTok, but we're terrified, so we don't know when that'll happen. But yeah, that's where you can find us. All of our books are available on Amazon. On Kindle Unlimited if you have Kindle Unlimited. So we also have a bunch of like magnets, like free stories, like Giving a Hand, which kind of takes place in between books 1 and 2 and is kind of like another fun heist because we got, like I said, we cut our teeth on Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, Richard, mood. So it's kind of like a self-contained 5-room dungeon sort of thing with a couple of spicy scenes in it. We also have Rolling the Dice, which is kind of like a little prequel magnet. And both of those are available if you subscribe to our newsletter.
Oh, cool. Just thought of another question if you guys want to answer it, but I know that you've kind of said you've got the D&D inspiration stuff. Have you thought about making this or making a series that's more like lit RPG? Because that's also like a really booming genre right now.
Well, we've thought about it, but like, the stat, like, talking about like stats and all this stuff, we actually started with like having, like, I have character sheets and I homebrewed the class that Tomlin is if he was in D&D. It's called the Charger class. So I've made one which we might release as like a freebie at some point after book 2. Of just like what that class is if you wanted to play it. It's pretty mechanical. It's like pretty mechanic heavy. It's not super like, I don't think you could take it out of that setting. Like I'd have to make a whole module basically, which is like an Underdark sort of fighting thing. But yeah, we've talked about lit RPG, but we haven't seen a lot of lit RPG fantasy romance. So
no,
that's kind of the problem. And
it would have to be like its own like separate thing that you would do or something, or I don't know.
I also personally, especially like lit RPG is also really popular in like Japanese light novels and anime right now, and I don't always love those. Like when I read them, I'm like, skip, because I'm like, I don't really care about a table of stats. Like that doesn't mean anything for me. So I don't know that we'd ever do a full lit RPG. I don't think that would be something that I would.
But something that I am interested in doing is like making modules of like, there's a big heist set piece in book 1. There's the giving a hand magnet that I was just talking about. That could easily be like a 5-room dungeon, like PDF that I could give out. Like I'm definitely interested in doing like that sort of stuff. As soon as Wizards of the Coast remembers, who pays their bills, which is the content makers and not. So, just waiting for all of that to settle with their new manuals too, because I think they're coming out with a 6th edition sometime in the next year or 2. So.
Okay. I love that. Yeah, that's a different way of thinking about reader magnets too, because that could be more that you can add in there to bring people to your series. So I love it.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much, Alex and Angie, for joining me today and telling us more about how you work together as a co-authoring and your book, The Heist of Yaventowne. I hope I get to finish that here soon. I haven't started on the book for my author for tomorrow, so I got to start on that one next. But I'm gonna have like 20 books started this month and then try to finish them up next month. So, yeah, thank you so much. Let me check the chat one last time. I think we just left off with Richard saying, "I love newsletters," which this is like his thing. Whenever he's on a channel somewhere, he's like, "Sign up to my newsletter." So, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it. It's really fun to get on here and talk. And thanks to everyone in chat. So.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. And next on Charm Chats and Happily Ever After Sprints, I'll have guest author S.C. Grayson on the show tomorrow. And that's the 5th of February at 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern. So I'm looking forward. And this is someone new for me. And this is fun. So thank you, Richard. All right, let me find the right button here. We got an outro. And thank you everyone for coming. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.